in just a moment. Back in 2008, 13 trades involving 20 picks happened in the first round. Those numbers have been dropping ever since. Only one last year, two this year. The Calgary Flames moving back a couple of times. Of perhaps more significant note, the second straight year without a current player traded during the first round. Are there specific reasons, Pierre, it didn't happen this year?
Well, outside 2020 being 2020, yeah, let's get to some specific reasons. I spoke with one GM after the draft who said, listen, the big trades are being held up because some teams still think they're getting full value for players. And what he means by that is you've got so many teams trying to move money. And you look at Tyler Johnson, Tampa Bay Lightning working on a trade with him over the next week or two. Should the Lightning be getting an asset back for him at this point, or should the Lightning be paying an asset to move that contract, given how many teams are trying to move money? As another GM said to me, the system is gummed up. There's no money to go around. Islanders trying to move cap money, Vegas trying to move money, Tampa trying to move money, and they're not alone. Having said all that, keep in mind this is a unique week. Free agency just in a couple days. We've never had a week compressed like this between the draft and free agency so close. Some teams are waiting closer to free agency. And finally, remember this. Last year, pretty quiet on the first night of the draft in Vancouver. We got to the rink the second day. PK Subban gets dealt. JT Miller gets dealt. Patrick Marleau gets dealt. Day two recently has been busier.
Well, up to the first 10 picks of the first round, there was a lot of talk. There was a lot of discussion, primarily with the Winnipeg Jets. Kevin Cheveldayoff says that there were some creative offers that were thrown his way going into the draft, and then right before he selected 10th overall. But Cole Perfetti was a player that the Winnipeg Jets, like many other clubs, coveted. So when he became available at 10, Winnipeg was not going to give up on the opportunity to draft the skilled forward from Whitby, Ontario, the former Whitby Wildcat. So the Winnipeg Jets look to the future, but they also now have to address the present. Maybe they do that in day two of the draft on Wednesday, or at least they continue to have dialogue. Could it be Patrick Laine that finally gets traded? Could it be somebody else from the Winnipeg Jets to address the issues that they have going into the new season? Looking for that number 2 center, looking for help on the blue line. I'm not projecting or predicting that this happens on Wednesday. They see something as significant as a Laine trade, but I do know that Kevin Cheveldayoff remains open for business.
If we start seeing these deals on day two of the draft or in the days leading up to the free agent frenzy, let's bring in Frank. Are we likely to see the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the middle of it?
James, I can't imagine them not being in the middle of it. I can't think of a more significant team that has so many different irons in the fire over these next 72 hours leading up to the free agent frenzy. I think it's the worst kept secret in hockey that the Vegas Golden Knights are gearing up to try and take a run at Alex Pietrangelo, the #1 player on our TSN top 75 free agents list. Well, how do they do that? Their first course of action, what they'd like to do is try and be able to move Marc-Andre Fleury and his $7 million contract over each of the next 2 seasons. They're going to have to try and find a way to sweeten the pot here over these next few days in order to make that happen. And if they can't, Kelly McCrimmon is going to have to circle back to his roster and pick off a player from that group, whether it's Paul Stastny, Alec Martinez, go down the list. The Vegas Golden Knights, if they want to be a player for Pietrangelo, they're going to have to move one of those players, and they're going to have to anyway if they'd like to be cap compliant for next season.
There was one significant move on this day, the trade Max Domi to Columbus for Josh Anderson. How did that come through?
Well, the Habs have been looking to upgrade in terms of size and skill up front. They've had an eye on Josh Anderson dating back to the trade deadline last year. They stayed on it. And there were several teams in on this trade. A lot of interest in this guy. Yeah, he was injured last year, but people know what this guy's ceiling is. So the Habs step up. It costs them a center and Max Domi and a third-round pick. And the Habs hope they're not done. In the size department, the Canadiens still have interest in pending UFA Wayne Simmons. So do the Leafs. We'll see where that goes.
Compressed week should be a fascinating week. We'll see what develops over the next few days before the Friends.